So I understand McKinsey's been looking at this issue of how women get more included in the workforce, and that it's actually an economic development issue. Like, how big of a deal is this?
Well, it's huge, right? So we just did a report that found that if women participated identically to men in the economy, we would add $28 trillion to global GDP by 2025.
That's unbelievable.
I mean, if that doesn't get your attention, I don't know what will.
Right.
Obviously, a lot of us feel excited about the cause of women's empowerment and women's full participation for a whole host of reasons.
Yeah.
But if the dollars don't wake you up,
right.
I mean, come on, $28 trillion.
Yeah. And you can see it, I think, on a personal level in any individual family situation. You know, women, when they're included at the same level as men, what it means for their lives. And you think about that at the macro.
Yeah.
And in countries and regions where women aren't participating.
No, absolutely. And if you think about some of the challenges we're facing, and women are tackling a whole host of challenges in global development. But the ones that are coming up in terms of, let's say, getting girls into school, a lot of those are about mindset and about changing hearts and minds. And if you don't have women leading the charge on that, you're never going to get there. When Michelle Obama said, it's not just about resources, it's about mindsets. You know, we have to change the way people think. If you don't believe a girl is worthy of going to school, she's never going to get to school, no matter how many billions of dollars you raise. So in a world where mindsets matter, then having women at the front lines is critical, because changing minds and hearts about the role of women, you have to see role models. And you need women articulating that in a way that young girls can hear. And so that's why someone like Malala, someone like the First Lady are so important in this, because without their voices, we're never going to get there.
And what do you see yourself as a woman leader in this field? You said it's 21 years since you started at McKinsey and you set up the social sector office. I mean, what do you see in terms of the trend lines here? Are we there? Is it done? Are we close?
Good God, no. We're not there. And in fact, we looked at sort of how long would it take to get to parity if we kept pace at sort of the rate that we're clicking at right now. It would take over 100 years. So no, we need to pick up the pace. We're not doing a great job. That said, I think people are understanding that if we do make it a priority, things can happen. So for example, we did a survey that found that less than a third of companies have gender parity as one of their top 10 objectives. Less than a third.
Wow.
Once you make it an objective, actually things start to happen, right? And you can do that both as a management team, but also as a board, right? So there's a lot of places that you can start to drive this conversation, but it has to happen a lot faster than it is right now.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons we at Devex wanted to create this initiative with you at McKinsey around power with purpose, women leadership.
Yeah.
Because so much of the issue is at the leadership level.
Yeah.
If you don't break
Totally.
through, if women aren't there at the top, or in the upper echelons of organizations, it's hard to change that culture, that mindset.
Well, it's sort of amazing, because you think of the nonprofit sectors, it's sort of chock full of women, right? There's so many women at almost every level, right? But the minute you get to the C-suite, suddenly the same problem again, which is even worse, because the sector itself has a lot of women engaged as staff in these organizations. The minute you get over $25 million in budget, you've got less than a quarter of those organizations are led by women, right?
That's
so the
amazing.
bigger the organization, the less likely it is to be led by a woman in the nonprofit sector, which is absolute madness.
Now, you work with CEOs of big corporations, of big nonprofits.
Yeah.
When you have this conversation with them, like, what are you telling them? How can they change their organization?
Well, first you have to make the case for why, and I think the dollars that we just talked about, make part of the case. I think other elements that tend to make the case is employee satisfaction. So we have found through our research that employees are happier and more satisfied, and they rate their company's performance as higher if there are women in the C-suite, in the leadership team.
Wow.
So that's not saying that the companies are more effective. We found that as well. We're talking about employees actually rating the company as more effective and being more satisfied in the workplace when they have women in the C-suite.
And what's amazing is when we think about our community, the global development community, set out with this mission to change the world, right? We're organizations that are trying to change everything from the environment to health to education.
Everything.
If they're not getting it right,
Yeah.
if we're not promoting leadership within our own community, our own mission-driven community, how are we supposed to tackle some of these urgent global challenges?
Exactly. We should be leading. And there are some really bright lights out there, right? I mean, when I think about the women in the development community who are really making things happen, I mean, these are some of the best leaders in the world on any issue, on any dimension. I think it's about time that we're shining a light on them.